Hello, everybody. Today is Saturday, the 31st of May, 2025. We are gathered here today for the 186th session of Mindfulness for Beginners in English, conducted by Nissarana Vanaya. I would like to welcome Venerable Homagama Dhamma Kusala Thero for our session as usual, and everyone who will be who's logging in with us via Zoom, who will be joining us via a Facebook live stream, or anyone who may be watching later as well. Our program, as usual, will commence with the in-session practice of mindfulness, which will then follow with today's talk on today's topic, which is learning. And finally, we'll be moving to the Q&A and reports from all the listeners that have sent us. And to begin today's session, I invite Venerable Dhamma Kusala Thero to start the in-session practice of mindfulness.
Thanks, Sonali. Hello, everyone. So today, I thought we can do a mindful walking session. For this, you can find some space where you are able to walk in a comfortable manner. Once you have selected your space, you walk comfortably, you walk back and forth. And while walking, what are we trying to do? We try to bring our attention to the walking. Notice what are the walking sensations that you feel. Probably the sensations at your feet, the texture of the ground, temperature of the ground, which parts of your feet is touching the ground. So that way we try to be mindful of our steps while walking. And time to time, the attention goes away. Various things grab your attention. Thoughts, memories, planning, surrounding, sounds, sights. So these things grab your attention. That's natural, that's part of this practice. But later you realize that your attention is somewhere else. Once you realize that your attention is gone away, simply bring it back to the walking sensations. Again, notice how the sensations at your feet. Notice which parts of your feet is touching the ground. Notice the texture, temperature of the ground. That way we try to take mindful steps. Time to time we get carried away with variety of things, but that's okay. We catch it. We gently bring it back to the walking sensations. So that way, let's try to continue few minutes of mindful walking. Okay, everyone. Now you can return back to your seats. So that was our time to do a mindful walking session today. With that, Sonali, you can take over.
Thank you, Bante. So next on the agenda is the talk on today's topic. This is a continuation from last week's topic we started. It is on learning. I now invite Venerable Dhamma Kusala Thero to start the talk on today's topic.
Okay, everyone. So this is a continuation topic from last time. And last time we discussed this into a certain level. Today also we'll take some time to discuss the same topic and see how we can have a different perspective of the same topic. Now, let's say no matter how much you learn, your learning won't be over. There are so many things in this world. I don't think a lifetime would be enough to learn all of them. So whether you learn your whole lifetime, still there would be more things for you to learn. No matter how many things you learn, there'll be even bigger things that you have to learn. So you improve the area of your knowledge. In the same time, you improve the area of your ignorance as well. You learn, you improve the knowledge, but still there'll be a bigger area of ignorance. For example, if you take the exploration of the universe, people, they get information further and further and see how this universe is made up. They had a certain telescope earlier. Now they have James Webb, which can see even further into the universe. But no matter how much you see, still there'll be a vast amount of ignorance. No matter how much we expand our knowledge, still there's a vast amount of ignorance. So that's how it is. Any other field you take, the same logic applies. So this is the reality of the knowledge. No matter how much we learn, still there'll be a greater amount of ignorance. Right? So let's say, at least if we know that we are having so many more things to learn, at least if we know that there is so much things that we are ignorant, you have to be like that. You have to at least know that there is so many more things to learn. You have to at least know, no matter how much you learn, there'll be even greater things. This very idea is important. Knowledge of your ignorance, awareness of your ignorance, that is important. Otherwise, we learn few things and we think that we are experts in that field. We learn certain things, we think that we are educated, knowledgeable in this world. But in reality, no matter how many things you learn, still there'll be more things that you are ignorant to. That's the reality. The people who think that they are knowledgeable, people who think that they know, these people might be dangerous. For example, if you go to a meeting room or a some other function, the loudest people there, the loudest ones, they think that they are knowledgeable. They think that they know. Even when you consider the world history, the most destruction has done by the people who thought that they knew. That's the reality. So no matter how many things you learn, you have to understand there'll be more greater things for you to learn. No matter how much you learn, the ignorance is bigger, right? So that's the reality. That very awareness is important. For example, there's this dialogue in one of the texts about Socrates, and it's something simple, but it tells us about the ignorance, about the knowledge of our ignorance, how important it is to be aware of our ignorance. That's important. So the question is, one person is asking, are you a good person? Then the other one says, yes, I'm a good person. Then again, first person asking, what is goodness? Then the second person get baffled. That person can't answer this question. What is goodness? What is good? Right? So if you don't know what is good, how can you be a good person? Then again, the first one is asking. Right? So this way, you can see most of the things that we believe, most of the things that we think about ourselves, the foundation is ignorance. Based on this foundation, based on the ignorance, we say, I'm a good person. Based on the ignorance, we say, this is the correct way to do it. Right? So that way, we tell things, we think that we are knowledgeable, we think that we know. But in reality, we have a greater amount of ignorance. No matter what we learn, our ignorance is bigger. Right? So that might be the reason why Socrates says, I know that I don't know. He's talking about knowledge of his ignorance. No matter how much he learned, still there's bigger things lacking. Right? So that's why he says, I know that I don't know. Knowledge of his ignorance. That's important. In a way, let's say there are two people. One thinks that he knows. Then the other person knows that he doesn't know. Right? One thinks that he is knowledgeable. The other person is aware of his ignorance. Out of these two, the second person is much higher in his mind because he is aware of his ignorance. The first person, he thinks that he knows. But in reality, that very idea, that very foundation is based on ignorance. But at least if you know that you don't know, then that's something. That's the foundation of wisdom. That's the stepping stone of wisdom. You know that you don't know. That's the beginning of wisdom. Right? So let's say even in our mindfulness practice, when you start the practice, when you begin your mindfulness practice, when you do the mindful walking, sitting, and even when you try your daily mindfulness, usually what happens is that you get to know how puzzled this mind is, how distracted this mind is. right? That very feeling, that very experience you get. Earlier we thought we are comfortable in our mind. Earlier we thought we know things about our mind. But when you simply try to be mindful, when you simply walk and be aware, when you simply sit and be aware, then you start to see how distracted your mind is. You get baffled by it, you get puzzled by it. That's natural. But when we think about the practice, that is the very beginning. You get to know how unmindful you are. You get to see how many thoughts come into this mind. And time after time, you get carried away by those thoughts. Time after time, you lose the mindfulness. Right? So that way, that very experience is the initial part. You get to see how unmindful the mind is, how distracted the mind is. Sometimes you can't even catch few breath cycles. You try to do it, but soon you fail. Again, you try to do it, but soon you fail. So this is the starting point of this practice. In a way, when you start practicing mindfulness, you become aware of your ignorance. You become aware how many things are there that you are ignorant. Time after time, so many thoughts come into this mind. So many sounds you hear every moment. So many bodily sensations are there. So these faculties work. Most of the time you are ignorant towards them. Right? So that very experience you get when you start your mindfulness practice. That is the very beginning. Now somebody who was new to the practice was telling their experience, saying that they couldn't close their eyes for a long time. Only for like few minutes, they could close their eyes. They became fearful. They feel too anxious, and suddenly they open their eyes. So this person was saying, I am unable to stay eyes closed. That ability I don't have. Only for few minutes I can stay like this. So this person becomes fearful. This person becomes too anxious when they close their eyes. Right? So that's the very nature of this mind. When the mind is all over the place, these things can happen. You feel fearful for no reason. You feel anxious for no reason. You feel sad, worried for no reason. Right? So this way, you feel that you are not comfortable in whatever you do. Whether you go to work, still you are not comfortable. You walk, you are not comfortable. You sit, you are not comfortable. Right? So that very experience this person had. And it's true. Initially, it is very difficult for them to stay sometime their eyes closed. But gradually, with repetitive practice, they can do it. Little by little, they develop the ability to do it. So my suggestion was to, every day for 3-4 minutes, whatever the amount you can, do a sitting session, your eyes closed. Then you can open your eyes again, stay for a while. Again, you can close your eyes for a few more minutes. So that way, repetitively you train yourself, practice yourself. And as a result, you become better at it. You realize the nature of this mind. And among all these things, you will be able to be mindful. At least notice your breath, how the breath is happening. Or in the walking, notice the steps, how the walking sensations are there. So this way, you have to take baby steps. Little by little, you have to develop that ability. We have been ignorant towards this mind for so long. When you try to be aware, it's not easy. It is creating a lot of frustration. It is creating a lot of fear, worry. Those things happen. But gradually, little by little, you develop that ability. And when you develop that ability, the very first thing is you become aware of your ignorance. You become aware how unmindful this mind is. You become aware how distracted this mind is. Right? So that very awareness is the beginning of wisdom. It's like that Zen story. The student comes to the master and says, "Master, I am puzzled." Then the master answers, "That's the beginning of wisdom. At least you get a glimpse of your ignorance. At least you get to know how ignorant you are." That very awareness of your ignorance is the beginning of wisdom. Now at least you won't say that you know everything. You sometimes might be quiet in an argument, right? In an argument, there could be other viewpoints. Although we think ours is correct, although we think this is the accurate one, when you think about it, other people might be perceiving this differently. So although there's this urge to win, although there is this urge to express your argument, maybe sometimes we can simply be quiet, allow the other people to talk, maybe allow them to think that they won, right? So that way, little by little, when we become aware of our ignorance, that helps. That helps for us to be quiet sometimes. Sometimes that helps for us to avoid creating a huge mess, right? So that way, this is important. And in our lives, let's say the ignorance of your doubt and worry. You doubt, you worry all the time, but you are ignorant towards them. The very ignorance of your doubt and worry, that can lead to a depression. That's the foundation of a depression. You doubt, you worry, and you do it repetitively. For weeks, for months, for years, you do the same thing. Right? So you can see ignorance of doubt and worry, it can lead you towards a depression. Let's say ignorance of compulsive thoughts. Right? So they can lead you towards something like OCD. They can lead you towards obsessions based on these compulsive thoughts. Right? So in a way, whatever the troubles, whatever the mental diseases that we face, they are based on ignorance. Ignorance of our doubt and worry might lead us into a depression. Ignorance of the compulsive thoughts might lead us into something else. So this way you understand that there is a whole lot of ignorance in our mind. Sometimes we doubt, we worry, but we don't notice that we are doubting. We don't notice that we are worrying. Sometimes we function according to the compulsive thoughts. Checking your phone, that would be a great example, right? No matter there's no sound or notification, still you keep checking your phone. So that happens like a compulsive behavior. Again and again it happens. If you don't do it, then it's so hard. You can't be like that. You can't do other things if you don't look at your phone screen. Right? So we again and again, for no reason, we are checking the phone, see whether there are any messages, see whether anybody has called. But for sure, you know that if you receive a message, you will hear the notification sound. If you receive a call from somebody, you will hear the ringing sound. But still you keep checking, right? So these behaviors, they develop, they get energy out of the ignorance. So if you want to get rid of such behaviors, if you want to create more conscious actions, then the very first thing is being aware. Be aware that you are worrying all the time. Be aware that you are doubting all the time. Be aware that you act due to these compulsive thoughts. Right? Compulsive thoughts are there. And as a result, you get this obsession of checking your phone every few minutes. If we can at least be aware of these things, then that's the very first step towards healing. Let's say even when you do mindful practice, when you write your reflection reports, let's say if you have a doubting personality, then even in your practice you doubt. Now, instead of other things, you doubt about the practice. You say that you can't be mindful, you didn't know whether you were mindful, right? So that way you express your doubt. Even for the sake of practice, you doubt. So you can see it's a doubting kind of a personality. And some people, they are always worrying about things. They start mindfulness practice, they start worrying about the time that they couldn't practice. They say, I started the mindful practice, but I can't be mindful. I didn't get enough time. So all those worries come. Right? Now they are worrying for the sake of the practice. So you can see how this mind is deceiving us. The doubting mind will always doubt whether it's for the worldly matters or whether it's for the practice. The worrying mind will always worry whether it's for your children, or whether it's for your work, or whether it's for your meditation. Right? So this way you can see how this mind is deceiving us. So the very first step towards healing is to become aware of this. Become aware how you are doubting for no reason. Become aware how you are worrying again and again. That very awareness helps. You won't be able to get rid of them. Don't try to completely get rid of them. That's not the way. Instead, simply know that you are doubting all the time. Simply know that you are worrying all the time. Simply know that these obsessions, compulsive thoughts are there in you. That very knowing is the way. Right? When you become aware, you feel like doing something about it. Even somebody, I think few days ago, was asking me, Mante, being simply mindful, is it enough? Or should I do something about it? Right? So that way this person is asking. The lust comes, the anger comes, I can be mindful and it disappears. But is that enough? Because again, after a few hours, the next day, again the lust appears. Again the anger appears. So this person is asking, is being mindful, that's enough? Is that enough? Or do I have to do more? Is there any other way to uproot these defilements? So that question is very common. People think mindfulness is something simple. That very simple thing can't eliminate these defilements. The defilements are so strong. How can this mindfulness stop them? That's the worry. That's the question that they ask. But Buddha says you can get rid of these defilements only by knowing and seeing them. He says there is no other way. Only by knowing and seeing them, you can eradicate these defilements. That's the only way. Right? So when you start knowing, when you start seeing these things, they come, they stay for a while, they disappear. But again, in few hours, the next day, these defilements appear again. Right? So it's like waves in the sea. One after other, they appear. They appear out of nowhere and they come. They come towards the shore. Right? So it's like waves. And we feel like this is never ending. The lust is coming time after time. The anger is coming time after time. All these worrying thoughts, doubts, they come time after time. Right? So we feel like this mindfulness practice is not sufficient. But every time you face these things mindfully, there is a teeny tiny energy loss. That energy loss is very teeny tiny, you can't really feel it. Every time you face lust, notice it by noticing it mindfully, knowing it mindfully. There is a teeny tiny energy loss. But it appears again. Again it comes. If you are able to face it mindfully again, there is a teeny tiny energy loss. So this way you have to continue. Don't try to get rid of defilements. Let them be. Let them be because you have to know them and see them. Without doing that, you can't eradicate them. Right? So that's why it says, let them be. Let them be. You develop the art of living with these defilements. No lust for lust, no anger for anger. Right? So that way, you have to continue with these things for some time. And when you do that, you realize every time you face them mindfully, there's a teeny tiny energy loss that you can't feel right away. But when you keep on practicing, when you continue for few months, few years, then you start to feel the cumulative effect. You start to feel that these emotions, these thoughts, things like lust, anger, they have lost a certain amount of energy. Still there is energy, still there is lust, anger, but they are not so powerful as they used to be. Right? So that's the very change that will happen. It don't happen within a day, it don't happen within a week. You have to continue, sustain your practice, and as a result, you get to experience that they have become weaker. Right? So that's the very idea. That's how you can change this mind for the better. You continue your practice, and every time you face these things, there's this difference that is happening. That difference is difficult to notice. You are not able to notice it right away. But it is happening. And maybe within few months, few years, you get to experience, now I'm a changed person. Now my mind doesn't work like it used to. Still there is lust, but it has become weaker. Still there is anger, but it has become weaker. That very change will come in time if you keep on practicing. Simply being mindful is enough, but you have to have confidence in it. You have to know that this practice works. And in addition, you have to support your practice. Right? In your daily lives, you have to make sure that you make wise choices. You have to make sure that you support your meditation practice. Otherwise, if you do all the crazy things and try to continue your meditation, that's not going to be easy. In a way, there are things that you can wisely avoid. There are certain things that you can get rid of them by avoidance, or you can support this meditation practice by avoidance. For example, bad influence, right? That you can avoid. Then probably riding a motorbike dangerously, something to avoid. If you want to live, if you don't want to become a cripple, if you want to continue this meditation practice in this life, then probably that's something to avoid. Or becoming an elephant whisperer or something, right? Something to avoid, right? So this way, there are certain things that we can do. We can do to support the practice. By avoiding certain things, you can support it. Then by bearing certain things, you can support it. Let's say when you go out to the world, you have to deal with people. And sometimes it's irritating. Sometimes it feels like you're getting into an argument for no reason. But if you wait patiently, if you bear it patiently, then within few minutes, that annoyance is gone. When you go out to the world, when the seasons change, according to the weather, you feel certain difficulties. In the winter period, you feel cold. In the summer, it is too hot. These days in Sri Lanka, it's rainy. Right? So these things you have to be patient and endure. If you start fighting these nuisances in your life, then that's a good way to ruin your very practice. Right? So these type of things, you have to be patient, and by being patient, you support your meditation practice. Now there was this person who came here, a foreigner. For a few months of meditation, he came. He came all this way, spending so much money. But once he came here, it was a hot period, probably like August, and he was not comfortable in his body. Humidity and heat he couldn't bear. So this person started blaming the weather and soon left, right? Within a couple of weeks, he left. So that type of patience is not there, and then it's difficult to continue your practice. The weather changes. If he would have stayed for few more weeks, then he would notice that the weather became more comfortable. But couldn't be patient, right? So you can see that by being patient, you can support your practice. In addition, even, taking good care of your body, eating proper meals, those things are also important. By simply doing them, you can support your meditation, because you have to protect this body in order to keep on practicing. You have to support your body with proper food, with proper exercise. So although these things are small things, you have to do them, right? So by using food, by using medicine when it is necessary, you can support your body, and as a result, you can continue your meditation practice. So this way you can see the mindfulness is enough, but you have to make wise choices in your life. I'm not saying you can get rid of your addictions overnight. That's not possible. But little by little, make better choices. Make better choices that will support your meditation practice. If there is bad influence in your life, then probably time to time, try to avoid them. Try to make better choices with your life. That whole effort is there. That whole effort should be there. Right? Otherwise, you can't simply do a 1 hour sitting practice and expect everything to be all right. That's not going to happen. That's the very idea about eightfold path. You start with mindfulness. We can say the eightfold path, the whole thing is mindfulness. But when you continue in your practice, you have to make better choices. You have to make good decisions in your life. You have to choose which situations that you will face, right? You have to choose which words to speak. So all those things come. But gradually, little by little, you create that atmosphere. The atmosphere that will support your meditation, right? So this way, the very idea of mindfulness is to become aware of your ignorance. You become aware of your doubts and worries, and as a result, you recover from your depressions. You become aware of your compulsive thoughts. As a result, you become much more comfortable in your mind, right? So all those things, by becoming aware of your ignorance, you can get much better. You can be more peaceful in your mind, right? Whatever the suffering, pain, all the worries we feel, the foundation is ignorance. If we at least know, if we at least become aware of our ignorance, that's the very first step towards getting better. So that's the very idea. I hope it is related to learning. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Bhante. It was very important to be learning about our own ignorances and being aware of them. That concludes today's topic and this topic in general. Next on the agenda is the questions and any reports that was sent to us. To start this section, I invite Samantha. Samantha, are you... You're having trouble unmuting yourself. Okay, let me send you a request to unmute.
Yeah, thanks, Sonali. I think, yeah, I couldn't unmute earlier on. Thank you, Avasarai Bante. That was a really valuable topic. I think I'm now finally trying to get to understand what exactly mindfulness is and its importance. Yeah, like Sonali said, everyone was talking about mindfulness, and it didn't really sink in. But it's only now I can just see why it's so valuable. But yeah, so it's lovely to learn. And also, if anyone has any questions, what on the topic of mindfulness and today's talk Bhante was giving, please ask at the end of the reports after I've read them. So before I go on to read the reports, I'll just like to quickly remind any newcomers to the program of the session. So basically, the guidance on how to meditate and submit your experiences in the form of a report to Bhante. And then Bhante can give valuable guidance on the advice on how to progress in your meditation. So do make use of that opportunity, that valuable opportunity. I think are the links in the chat. The links will be put in the chat later on. So have a look at the chat. There will be there's also two helpful video links put together by Nissarana Vanaya on both mindful walking and mindful sitting. You can follow the instructions and allocate some time for the practice daily, as Bhante advised earlier on. And I certainly see the importance of doing that daily now and making time. Starting with the walking meditation as we did today, and then sitting meditation gradually building up to say 2 hours a day. Even if you start initially 20 minutes, and then it'll slowly become a habit, and then you can increase the time. So that really helpful in being mindful throughout the day as well. Then please submit your experiences in writing, both mindful walking and mindful sitting, and any even mindful practice during the day, daily activities. That's also important to Bhante. There's an example on how to do this in the chat. So if you just have a look and then follow the guidance. For example, if you're walking, you can describe, like we did earlier on today, Bhante explained, any prominent sensations on the feet, the texture of the ground, any pressure points on the soles, and how the body weight shifted. Similarly, in sitting meditation, you can refer to any prominent sensations, incoming and outgoing breath at the nostrils, or rising of the abdomen, etc. Whatever sensations that come to you in the forefront. And also write your experiences on mindfulness on daily activities during the day. That's also important, as we learned today. Then in the session, Bhante will give valuable guidance for your own practice and how to progress in your meditation. So do make use of this opportunity. You can send reports either in Google form or by email using the links provided in the chat, as you can see. Yeah, like Bhante said this earlier on, it's essential to have a practice set up every day, and this is a good to increase the mindfulness. and it's a good opportunity to get personal guidance also from Bhante, and you can continue with your mindful practice during the week according to the advice given from your by Bhante for your own report during the session. So that will be helpful. Finally, the recordings of the session are available at the link if you want to revisit, given in the chat. So, okay. So now what I'll do is I'll quickly go on to the reports that that's received this week. Let me just have a look. Yeah, Bhante, we have 2 reports received. So the first report, Venerable Bhante, it's on mindful walking. It's by an adult. Time taken 45 minutes. Place on the carpeted floor. Main object, sensations underneath the feet. I walked freely several times, then stood at the edge and did a body scan. Then started to walk, labeling soles as left and right. Could feel the hardness and roughness of the carpets. I could hear the rain outside. Birds were chirping cheerfully. Future planning started about an upcoming class. That was overwhelming. I realized that I'm not meditating. After that, observed the footsteps again. Could observe 8 steps in a length. Then mindful sitting, time 50 minutes. Place inside a room on a cushion. Main objective, belly movements. I sat down on the cushion on the floor in easy pose. Then I observed the body as a big stone. My mind was scattered all over, so I listened to the nature sounds. Gradually, mind settled in the body, and I could feel the hardness of the cushion. Attention was grabbed by the movements of the belly. Risings were no longer than fallings. I could observe 4 movements in a length. It may be a few minutes, but I caught myself in one-sided conversation with my favorite friend. Again, I watched the breath. At the end, I felt that my meditation was mostly full of thoughts and I didn't meditate well. Thero Saranai, Bhante. That's the end of that report, Bhante, from the first adult report.
Okay, right. So when we hear this report, it shows the importance of discussing this. When we practice, we judge ourselves. We think that this is not meditating. My meditation wasn't good. Like that we judge. Right? So that's why we say it is important that we discuss our experience time to time. And when we discuss, you can see our topic was knowledge of ignorance. Now earlier also you were worrying about upcoming classes and events like that. Planning it, worrying about it, becoming anxious. Right? So those things were there for a long time. But only today you have caught it that in the walking this happens. So that is the knowledge of ignorance. You have been ignorant all this time, but now you are aware. Is that something to be frustrated? is that something to be sad? Quite the opposite. You can be happy that now I am catching these processes that are happening. Now I am catching how much frustration, anxiety I create for the future events. That's the very idea. Then one-sided conversation with a friend that you caught, but in your report your idea is you didn't meditate well. But in reality, you were able to catch many things that you have been ignorant to. Right? So it's not something to be frustrated. It's not something to worry. Instead, you can be happy about it. You can be happy all this time I have been ignorant towards these things, but now I am becoming aware. That's the very idea of meditation. Right? So again and again try this and see where your mind takes you. And wherever it takes you, there is a lesson for you to learn. Whether it's the one-sided conversations, simply be aware of it. Whether it's the upcoming events, planning, becoming anxious, simply be aware of it. Right? These things must be there for you to become enlightened. These things must be there for you to develop your practice. Right? So next time when you go, don't think that these things won't come. They will come definitely. And when you catch them, don't frustrate yourself. Instead, you can be glad that I am catching all these processes that are happening. I'm catching the future planning for the events. I'm catching these one-sided conversations. I'm catching all these doubts, worries. Right? That very process is the process towards lasting peace. Otherwise, if you try to find peace without all these thoughts, memories, conversations, it won't happen. That's what goes wrong with most people. They think that defilements should vanish as soon as they start meditating. They think that these things shouldn't come as soon as they start observing some virtue, right? But in reality, this very experience will lead you towards lasting peace. Buddha says you have to know and see them in order for you to eradicate them. Without knowing and seeing, you can't eradicate them. You can suppress them temporarily, but they will be there. Right? So no, just understand this is the whole process. What you have to do is do it again and again. Tomorrow also do a sitting session, walking session. Again, continue your daily things. Try to be mindful at least a little in your daily life. That way, sustain this practice and you'll find the peace within. That's the way to find peace.
Yeah, thank you. I couldn't unmute again. Thank you, Bhante. That was valuable advice. So I'll go to the next report by the second adult. They've written, started off with walking meditation. So walked in a forest between two trees on a path of dry leaves on a short incline. Noted the sound of the dry leaves being crushed. Dry leaves being crushed when foot was being placed. Then, the softer part of the ground compared to the hardness of the foot. The difference in the posture when walking up the incline, leaning forwards, and the extra effort needed to move the foot forward. Once a dead branch hit the shin, noted brief pain which passed. Lots of birds, song occasional distraction, trying to identify them, but mind spontaneously returned to feet. Thoughts of recording bird song to identify them, which was done at the end. Thoughts arose, but passed quickly, not too distracting. Walked for 30 minutes. Then the sitting meditation. Primary object, watching the breath. Sitting symmetrically, watched in and out breath, prominent at left nostril. Warmer outer breath, which was longer than the in-breath. The length became equal and breath broke up and disappeared. When it reappeared, was more prominent on the right nostril. Body rocked slightly and then stopped. Felt sleepy. Body jerked a few times. Posture adjusted to sit up straight. Thoughts came and went briefly. That's the end of the sitting meditation. Sat for 30 minutes. Then mindfulness in the day. On a drive for 1.5 hours, unable to get any sound from the phone. Decided to use the opportunity to be mindful for at least part of the drive instead of listening to a sermon. Noted hardness of seat and steering wheel. Weight of bottom on the seat and back leaning on the seat. The cool air on the hands. Tighter grip on the right and lighter hold on the left. The slight movements of the hand gliding the wheel noted. Extension of fingers on indicators were changing lanes. The sun on skin and warm on parts of the face. Reached destination in what felt a shorter time. That's the end of the report, Bhante, with much gratitude to Bhante and the organizers. Thero Saranai.
Okay, thanks for the update. And we can see that the walking and sitting, even the daily practices, you are becoming more and more familiar about it. And that very process is the path, right? Again and again, gradually you develop this practice. That is your path. So make it a priority in your life and continue. If we want to listen to the Buddha's teachings, this is the way. For ages, we have been listening to Dhamma. Now, let's say on a 4 day in Sri Lanka, early from the probably like 5 a.m. to 8 p.m., you can hear a lot of sermons. But nobody is interested in, putting it into practice. That's the thing. Then they say that this is a Buddhist country, these things shouldn't be happening. And all the crime, all the killing, all these things are there. What's the reason? They just listen to the sermons. They don't execute it. They don't put into action. Right? That's the problem here. Right? So in your case, instead of listening to a sermon, you decided to experience a sermon. When you be mindful and simply notice what is happening, that's the best way, or best way to experience, best way to know the Dhamma. There is no greater way. We think that this Buddha's teaching, it's about knowledge. No, it's about wisdom. Knowledge is gathering things, accumulating, memorizing things. All these sermons, all these teachings. But in reality, when you become mindful, you become whole. You become one with the entire universe. And there you have all the knowledge that you need. You don't need anything further. Right? So that very change is needed. That very change is important. People don't like to do that change. It's easier for them to just listen to the sermons. It feels like they have done something. It feels like they are part of this Buddha's teaching. But in reality, just listening won't do. You have to put it into action. You have to execute it. How to execute? Simply being mindful. Whenever you be mindful, so many Buddhas are preaching Dhamma there. When you become unmindful, you might have to go look for sermons outside. Right? So that's the very idea. Continue your practice and we'll discuss after a couple of weeks again.
Yeah,
Samantha was
sorry.
not hosted, that's why.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Yeah, I keep getting muted. Yeah, next time. Thank you, Bante. That's the end of the report. So we can go on to any other questions. If anyone has any questions they want to ask from the talk or of their practice, they can raise their Zoom hand or write in the chat, and I can read it out to Bante. You can send it to me direct if you want. I don't think we have any questions at the moment. So yeah, I mean, while we're waiting for anyone to have any questions, we have one. Yeah, Sonali. Yeah, thank you, Sonali.
It's actually not about today's session. It's about a session we've had a few weeks ago on eating. I was doing some research and helping my husband go on this diet that he wants to do. And a lot of it is on this thing called food noise. So it actually explains everything that Bante said. It's about just your head throwing various ideas of food into your head. And I was thinking it's exactly what we discussed, but they've given it a name in the modern world as to how to control food noise. Basically, it's just thoughts of food flowing into your head while just not needing it, basically. So I was just thinking about what Bante said a few weeks ago when we discussed that topic, and it directly relates to that. So it's just a comment.
Yes, it's good to see how these things can relate to the scientific knowledge, whatever the things that they find out. So being mindful while eating or the thoughts related to food, it helps a lot. As you mentioned, maybe most of our day we think about food and how to eat, what to eat, all those planning, thinking goes there. So much energy goes there. And even while having a meal, we might not be enjoying it. We might be thinking about the next meal. Right? So this way, one of the important things in our life, like food, it creates a lot of noise in us. That's the idea of food noise, thoughts and all these things related to food, right? So we can see, we can make it so complicated, we can increase the noise, or we can find a simpler lifestyle and maybe reduce the noise a bit. Same goes for other complications in your life, not only food, maybe dwelling, your work, your home, your responsibilities, all these things, we can make it so complex and increase the noise level. And one day it becomes unbearable and you break down. It breaks you. But if we become mindful, if we see how much noise that's there, then we might find alternative lifestyles. Even in the same lifestyle, we might not make it so complicated, right? So, and that way the practice can help. We can make our lifestyles much simpler, and by doing so, we can reduce this noise. Complexity will create all this noise, and that very noise one day might break us. So we have to be wise, make sure that we are creating at least the necessary noise, not too much. That ability is there. I can't say that you should do this. You have to find the proper balance in your life. Now somebody, I think couple of weeks ago, during that discussion, somebody later came and mentioned that person also realized that why am I creating this additional noise? Why am I living this so complicated lifestyle? Maybe I shouldn't be taking another loan for something that is not necessary. Maybe I shouldn't be finding a different job. Maybe I shouldn't make my lifestyle so complicated. Right? So those things, that balance you yourself has to find. You have to find your own balance. Once you are comfortable with a certain lifestyle, it's not easy to change it. Right? So change might create resistance. Change might need a lot of effort, but little by little, gradually you can find a proper balance for you. That's the very idea. So listening to this noise will help you reduce it. It will help you find a better balance for you. Thanks for adding that.
Thank you, Bhante. I've just got, I know the time is up, a little question has come up. Can I read it out, Bhante, from someone? Would that be okay?
Yeah.
Yeah. Bhante, is it compulsory to forward a report on experience in day-to-day life? And the same person said, today I got to know the meaning of the practice.
Okay, so first we are happy that you got to know the meaning of the practice. It is not compulsory to forward a day-to-day life part, but whole idea is to remind you that you should be practicing in your daily life as well. Right? That's why we say threefold report: walking, sitting, and daily mindfulness. You don't have to send all three, but we are reminding it again and again to make sure to convince the idea that you should be practicing throughout your day. What happens to most people is that they think that it's only the sitting time that they should be mindful, they should be practicing. So they do it for 1 hour, then the other 23 hours, they are lost. That won't help, because you are talking about this mind. Whenever the mind is active, you have to practice. Right? So that's the idea. It is not compulsory to send, but we keep reminding it again and again, just to convince the idea that you should be practicing in your daily life. Especially in this program, we get a lot of daily experiences as well. That's a good sign. Some of the other sessions I attend, they just talk about their walking and sitting. They don't like that daily life is part of practice. But in this program, most the reports that we get, It talks about daily life as well. That's a good thing. That reminds us that as long as we are aware, as long as we are living, we should be practicing.
Brilliant. Thank you, Bhante. So today's lesson, mindfulness. Yeah. Now the time is up, and I'll hand you back to Sonali to finish off. Thank you. Thank you, Bhante. Thank you.
Thank you, Samantha, and thank you to everyone who forwarded reports or forwarded the questions. It is time is up today. I'd just like to remind everybody that if you would like us to discuss a certain topic, please send us or just type it in the chat as to what you would like us to discuss as our next topic, and we will definitely take that into consideration. We would love suggestions from everybody regarding this. So on behalf of the organizers, I would like to thank our usual guide, Venerable Homagama Dhamma Kusala Thero, for his continued guidance on this program and continuing to be by our sides, guiding us on this program as well. And we can't forget the Chief Abbot of Nissarana Vanaya, Venerable Udayagama Dhammajiva Mahathero, whose idea was to initiate this program as well. May this merit help them to improve their own practice as well. And thank you to all the organizers who are maintaining this program, and much merit to all the participants who are participating via Zoom, Facebook live stream, or whoever may be watching later. And as usual, we will meet at 1 p.m. Sri Lankan time. May you all have a happy and mindful week ahead. I will now end the session for everyone.